This is Tennessee's last hope to make their run in the SEC.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everyone. You are on Locked On Women's Basketball, your team every day. My name is Clea Butler, the sideline reporter for the Chicago Sky. Thanks for being an everydayer and making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm joined with Sophia Jones from the Golden State Valkyries. Sophia, what should we be on the lookout for today?
In college, teams are in pursuit of a championship, whereas in Unrivaled, we've already seen it.
Okay, this is a good one. I think everybody should give Sophia credit for some of the bars that she has put out very early on in our show. She always has something that really draws the people in. So, doing her job well. But Sophia set it up perfectly. We're going to go over Unrivaled, who got the W and who is the new champion in Unrivaled Season 2. We also have to continue talking about some of our conference tournaments because the games are already exciting and it was just day one. But one of the biggest questions is always going to come down to the SEC tournament because it seems like there is the most on the line for some of these teams. One of those teams being Tennessee. They will go on to face Alabama today. Alabama making it to the second round of the tournament after beating Missouri yesterday. They won 65-48. It was a 17-point win, which marked the first time since 2022 that the team has advanced in the tournament. So they are riding on some confidence. While on the other side, Tennessee, we've talked about it time and time again. There's something that seems to be maybe a little bit off, especially towards the back end of the season. They had finished the regular season on a 6-game losing streak. Luckily, they've had some time, hopefully, to rest up, have their legs under them going into today. But, we've seen this. It's either Alabama can get tired early, Tennessee maybe just can't outperform them. But this is going to be really important to dictate how far Tennessee can really go in this tournament if they continue their losing streak.
If Tennessee has any chance to make it far, continue to boost or try to erase the stain that was left on their March Madness resume from the last portion of their season, it needs to happen in the SEC tournament. And if they want any hope of doing that, they need to focus on what's in front of them. There's just been a lot of talk and chatter around the program recently. Most recently, Kaya Wynn, she was a reserve guard that announced this last Tuesday, that she is leaving the program, citing senior day as a quote-unquote breaking point. This isn't too long after where head coach Kim Caldwell said to the media after Tennessee lost to UConn that she has, quote, a team that will just quit on you, end quote. So a lot of words and dialogue being thrown around. And that's where I say for a squad like Tennessee, who when they're at their best and they're competing, we've seen that full court pressure defense. On offense, everyone's sharing the wealth. They can compete with anyone, but just a lot of this narrative surrounding the program recently, I think has seeped in and why they are 2-8 in the last 10 games.
I think adding on to your point, just the talk around Tennessee in general, Andrea Carter, obviously former Tennessee guard, broadcaster, all that good fun stuff. She had a lot to say about Kim Caldwell's conversations after some of these games and just what she has seen firsthand about, talking about that these players have no belief essentially, and it is up to the coach to speak that belief into her players and give them that confidence. She said, if you're a coach, you're required to figure out a system that fits your players. There's no amount of NIL money that can buy buy-in. And that's a pretty bold statement to put out there. She said this on College Game Day, but I think it's very reflective of how Tennessee has been playing. She comes out and says that they're kind of playing like quitters, but on the other side, maybe these players just don't have any belief. It's not a good sign when one of your players decides to leave and says that senior day was her breaking point. Obviously, all of this is sort of outside of basketball, but it does translate on to how that court representation has started to look for Tennessee. Alabama coming in, again, a little bit of a confidence boost. You get your first win of the tournament, or getting to an advance in the tournament for the first time since 2022. And they have been consistent throughout the season. They've been in and out of the polls themselves. And on paper, the teams are relatively fairly matched up. Alabama 22-9 on the season, 8-9 in SEC play. Tennessee 16-12 on the season, 8-8 in SEC play. This can be a pretty good game going into it.
It definitely can. And that's where I say Tennessee's mental going into this game is going to be crucial, because about Alabama's style of play is more, they like the half court possession game. They control the pace, really harp on their defense and slowing everything down. Offensively, they create a lot of production through the 3-point line. Whereas Tennessee, they pick up full court, man-to-man, full throttle every single possession. They're looking to score quick and early in transition, a lot more fast-paced. So when you're at a battle of which team can instill their will and pace and overall style of play more in the game, that is where the mental factor comes in and a lot of those intangibles. And for right now, Tennessee, it looks like they're lacking those a bit more than Alabama.
Looking at some matchups in the Big Ten to watch out for, Washington is going up against USC. When we're talking about teams that love to, command the defense and get their points through that, Washington has been one of those teams for the Big Ten. I think this can be a little bit of a challenge for USC. Washington finished their season with a regular season win over Oregon, while USC is coming off of a loss to UCLA. USC does enter the tournament with a little bit of confidence because they have beat Washington 59-50 in their last meeting on December 7th. They have the freshman of the year on their team as well right now. What can we expect from this USC-Washington game?
Another conflicting ideology game. Washington, again, they're more half court. They're going to force the game to slow down. Defensively, they're going to be physical with you, look to out rebound. Offensively, they rely a lot on their sets. They want to keep the game very low scoring, whereas USC, more up tempo. They have a ton of athleticism on their team that they love to use. Get it out and run. They can stay with you if you do try to push the ball. So it'll be whatever team can instill that style of play more in the game. For a team like USC, they just need to make sure that they don't get dissuaded by any kind of missed shots or turnovers, because that is where they have lacked some consistency.
And that's where kind of that youthful component comes in with USC, having the emotions kind of dictate how the game can go, especially late. Washington has done a good job at keeping their composure, especially when it comes down to having to keep people in their half-court sets. But looking at another Big Ten game that could be interesting in round two, Indiana and Ohio State. Indiana beat Nebraska yesterday with a 20-point comeback win. They won 72-69, which is the largest comeback in their program history. So again, they will move on to play number 5 in the seeding, Ohio State. This is another interesting matchup because Indiana has some honestly really good weapons on their team. One of them being Shea Sheshki, who is averaging 23 points per game for the Hoosiers. She has really elevated her game. She can score basically at all 3 levels, and she was a really large part of being that hot hand. And sometimes all you need is one to get through the tournament. One player that has, Sophia, what you have talked about, this willingness to win and fight and battle to the very end of the buzzer. They could come in and possibly upset Ohio State.
I would agree. Even like you said, there's always one player that everyone manages to fall in love with during March, because that dog just comes out in them, and maybe they're the lower seed, but they just will their team to win. And that's what will need to happen matching up against Ohio State. But again, looking at some of these styles of plays for Ohio State, their leading scorer and leader, Jeloni Cambridge, she's a very dynamic scorer. You need to control the pace and tempo, not let her just dictate whatever she wants to do, especially when you're just played yesterday and you're coming off of scratching and clawing your way out of a 20-point deficit. Their gas tanks, I could imagine, are probably pretty low right now. They need to figure out how to get that replenished. And again, in game, slowing down Jeloni Cambridge.
Well, stay with us because there was a queen of the court crown for Unrivaled. The championship has finally come, and we're going to cover just exactly how it all went down. Welcome to the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, or cotton candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick for the 5-hour energy flavor draft. First, I love strawberry banana. Definitely a strawberry banana type of girl. It's very soft, has a mellow banana finish. I know some people are kind of iffy about bananas. I personally love bananas. So it's not too much, though. I think everybody would like it. It has a smooth, creamy fruit profile. Words are hard, everyone. But the strawberry is also the flavor up front. So if you're not as much into the banana, you can rely on that strawberry flavor. But I also want to present fruity rainbow into the mix because I really think this can kind of just bring everything together of all those soft, subtle tones of fruits. It's kind of nostalgic. It's almost like a candy bag flavor. It's sweet, colorful finish that lingers lightly. So those are my top picks in the draft. 5-hour energy shots give you a boost with zero sugar, which is nice on top of it if you're trying to avoid any sugar, but you can still kind of get that taste behind it without actually consuming any of that. So find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or go to Amazon. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. I pulled up the Game Time app, picked an upcoming NBA game, and had tickets locked in with minutes. I wanted to go to a Bulls game last minute, and it's just so convenient where I can just pull up my Game Time app and be like, I'm deciding to go to the game today. I was right by the arena. My cousin lives over there. We decided, hey, let's just drop in, and it makes it so much easier than having to go try and get them. I could just get them online and boom, we're right there. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. There was a misty haze that came over Miami yesterday because the Mist have been crowned the Unrivaled Season 2 champions. I was stood corrected because I felt like Phantom were on a roll. I thought Kelsey Plum was going to be unstoppable, but realistically, you can't stop the co-founder of Unrivaled. Breanna Stewart came in and showed exactly why she was continuing that momentum from playing in New York to Miami. She was like, we want to bring it back to the home crowd. What she really was saying is that she wanted to beat everyone in front of the home crowd because she already beat them in New York, and translate it over.
Yeah, individually, I don't know there are that many other athletes that have won as many championships as Breanna Stewart between NCAA, WNBA, Unrivaled, EuroLeague. She's just such an accomplished individual, but at the beginning of the season, I will pat myself on the back. I predicted after seeing the rosters that the Mist were going to win this title. They just had a great balance of youth, also some veterans, great size, guards, big guards, and forwards. And they proved me right. But during the game, it was really back and forth in the first half. You said Kelsey Plum was on a roll, and she definitely continued that same momentum in the first half. But because Phantom was without pretty much their 1B option in Aaliyah Boston, I think Kelsey ran out a little bit of a gas. The only other big during that game was Kiki Iriafin as well, and she didn't play all the minutes. And so once he started getting into the second half, it was Breanna Stewart time. She went on a personal 12-2 run to open up the third quarter. And that third quarter is so decisive as well in the Unrivaled format because the 11 points are added to the team in the lead. So you want to build yourself as much cushion as possible. But for Stewie, she was the MVP, and because the Phantom were playing small, she was exploiting every single matchup that she had. A lot of times, unfortunately, ended up on her team, her Liberty teammate, Natasha Cloud, but she was just rolling. And then Miss also used a little bit of a double big lineup a lot with Stewie and Alana Smith. That worked really well. They were just a team that was more or set into a better place to win that game.
Yeah, size definitely took advantage in this one, and we talked about that a little bit earlier once we found out that Aaliyah Boston was no longer going to be with the Phantom. That's a tough player to lose, but when you're looking at Stewie, when she's just also one of the co-founders of playing positionless basketball. I mean, at her size and her ability to move and just create opportunities for herself and just be a two-way player that she is, it's just like she's just so mesmerizing to watch. And it's just like when you think she's already doing well, she continues to keep getting better every single season, being a veteran. But you bring up such a good point. Breanna Stewart really is that girl and that girl only, because she has won over 15 major championships. Because you do bring up a good point. I was like, how many has she actually won? She has over 4 NCAA titles, 3 WNBA championships, 3 Olympic gold medals, 3 FIBA World Cups. Then she also has her 2 Euro League. And honestly, I don't even know if this counts all of them, because we got to go throw it back to when she was little at Syracuse, whatever championships she was winning back then. She is a winner, and she showcased exactly why she continues to be a winner. But I like being able to see a fresh face, especially when you're early on in Unrivaled year 2. We did think it was going to be the Rose that can maybe win again, especially when Chelsea Gray was, pointing up to the banner, being like, this is what the standard is. Whoop-de-doo. It was like almost going to be like seeing the Golden State continue to win, the NBA championship. It's nice to see a fresh face early on win the championship, especially one of them being a Stewie, who she's just a player that no matter what, you want to see win.
You do. I saw something where she had to teach some of her Misty's teammates after how to pop champagne, because she's just done that before. She's like, oh, okay, another bottle. Let's just go. Let's get this over with. She is just such a winner at her core. And watching the way that she took over that third quarter specifically, she was not going to allow her team to lose that game. Again, we saw it in Brooklyn. We've seen it throughout the course of the whole season, even for the Mist. She was definitely a central piece in their offense and defense style of play. But when you're looking at some of who got the superlatives, it was Alicia Gray that ended up on that second team. But this is just where a veteran leader like Stewie takes over during postseason play. And like you said, why it's so valuable to have her on your team.
Something about those Huskies, man, I'll tell you. But stay with us, because coming up after this, another Husky in Nafisa Collier thinks that Unrivaled should head to St. Louis, and we're going to give our opinions on that.
It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve, while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment.
Where should Unrivaled head next? We saw so much success this season from playing in Philly, playing in Brooklyn. So when asked where is next when they're talking about these tours, upcoming season, next summer, Nafisa Collier said she thinks that they should head to St. Louis, which I thought was an interesting pick. But when you're thinking of basketball, St. Louis is another city that is an absolute hub for it and a really good place to bring more attention to women's basketball as well. So I felt like this was a good time to maybe revisit some of the women's top sports cities that we had talked about quite some time ago and see who can be added to next season's Unrivaled list. St. Louis was actually not on this list within the top 10, but some places that they have covered are obviously New York. Philly actually wasn't on this list either. So they have gone a little bit rogue and have decided that all these other cities are now going to become women's basketball cities, which I think is awesome. But Sophia, we talked about this last time too. The Bay Area is actually the #1 city for supporting women's sports in general. I think that they should be next in on the list too when it comes to Unrivaled.
I would have to agree. Looking at the way that the Bay Area showed out for the Valkyries in their inaugural season this last year, it was truly special. And calling a lot of their games on radio, you felt just the passion of every single fan in the seats, every single home game. There wasn't one game I can think of that there was any kind of drop off, and they also sold out every single home game that year. So that's an announcement I'm sure Alex Bazell would love to make, is another sold out crowd for Unrivaled. But a lot of really great cities. And I think for Nafisa Collier also throwing in the St. Louis, Missouri, is because she is actually from Missouri. So she saw Stewie get all the love from Brooklyn. She felt like she might have been missing out a little bit. So that's where I can understand her trying to put her state on the map.
As she should. And I mean, there's a lot of talent that comes out of St. Louis, as I mentioned, another city that is just so rich when it comes to basketball. I kind of find it similar to Chicago, where their like high school level basketball is very important to them. So of course she wants to put her city on the map, because when you have a Nafisa Collier coming out of St. Louis, we got to see who else is out there, and just having that representation of being there, having young girls come out to the games. And I think that is one of the biggest parts of this Unrivaled tour, is just having some of these young fans come out and see all of their favorite athletes at one time, essentially. All of the elites within the league coming out and having this tour. Obviously, you have the WNBA, but I think Unrivaled is just such a special moment for certain players to come out and just showcase a different way of what this can look like for them. But I think another one that is obviously on my list is Chicago. Chicago is number 10, tied with DC. This is all according to the athletics research. But another one I think is Indianapolis. That could be a good one for Unrivaled too, just because I thought that they had a really good showing when it came to WNBA All-Star Weekend. I think that is the most young and turnt we had seen them, especially with all the live streams through the Studbuds and everything, and obviously the Caitlin Clark effect. especially just seeing the amount of young fans that were at that All-Star game. They come in really deep. The Pacers love watching the Fever games, and they were coming in deep for WNBA All-Star too. So you bring in all that traction. But again, now that All-Star is going to be in Chicago this year, I hope this is laying some more seeds for more WNBA fans, more women's basketball fans to be like, okay, Chicago is a hotbed for this. Let's continue by adding Unrivaled here, because there's so many arenas within Chicago. I can make a stand for playing in honestly all of them, just go on a little tour. But obviously, I'm going to root for Chicago to be one of the next ones.
Yeah, I think there are so many great cities that you can look at, even on the list that the Athletic and that we both discussed a lot of shows ago. Another one that I would be very interested in would be Boston, because one of the things that was really great about having it in Miami and having that be the home base is because there is no WNBA team. So on a weekly, monthly basis, a lot of these fans aren't getting exposed to these players. They don't get the chance to see them in person. And so now that you're putting Unrivaled there, they are growing into it, and that's only developing basketball in the Miami area, which I think has always been at a really high level, but just professionally, it wasn't there. But for Boston, they are looking to try to maybe expand. I think they've been in talks to try to get an expansion team. There's been talks with the Connecticut Sun there as well. So we already know that that's a basketball hotbed area that I think Unrivaled would thrive in if they do a tour stop there. But again, because they're not seeing a lot of these players on a daily basis, I know the Northeast is very jumbled up, and so it's kind of easy to get to and from. But still, it would be exposing the Unrivaled and the success that the league has generated to a new audience.
I actually went to the first WNBA game that was hosted in TD Garden, so where the Celtics play, and it was between the Connecticut Sun and LA Sparks, and that was a sold-out crowd as well. So when you're talking about these teams playing in areas that there isn't a WNBA team, and obviously the Connecticut Sun being the closest for, Boston basketball lovers to see their WNBA teams. But again, I think what's the most rewarding for me is not only seeing the young fans, but honestly seeing some of the older women coming to games too, and feeling like they are finally being represented, being able to see women on these really large stages. But that was probably one of the most, I was there for Patriots training camp, but selfishly, I was most excited about being able to go to the first WNBA game in TD Garden. And I remember this is when Drew Holiday was still on the Celtics as well. And he was there with his wife and his daughters. And I think you're exactly right. You hit it on the nose when it comes to putting some of these teams on platforms where people can come see their favorite WNBA players in places they haven't been able to see them before. So very excited to see what that can look like moving forward. But thank you for tuning into Locked On Women's Basketball. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Women's Basketball so you get the latest episodes. We will be back tomorrow to keep you updated on everything that is going on within these tournaments. If you ever miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Just go to lockedonwomensbasketball.supercast.com for ad-free